All right, welcome back to the No Script Show, where the upload schedule is sporadic, but the quality of the content is always top notch and never faltering.
That's true. Thank you. Like that's the out I needed, because we all know like people are always like, it's either audio files or uploader files. Like, where's my free stuff? I
need my free stuff, and I don't just need it. I need it on the dot. I need it on a weekly basis. I need it on this date at this hour. If you're late, I withdraw my support for your and my consumption of your free stuff.
Yeah, at this quality level. Yeah, bro. It's been a while. But I've been busy with stuff in grad school, and yeah, you have obviously been busy. Yeah,
dude, 2022 has been my very, very busy year. I've been struggling to keep up with many things, just private and work-wise. It's just so many things on my plate, but I'm managing, and the nice thing is I'd rather be rushing around trying to get my stuff done rather than sitting on my hands and doing nothing, seeing as idleness is definitely the devil's friend. In Afrikaans it goes a bit better. In Afrikaans the saying is ledigheid is die duiwel se oorkussing.
Yeah, I think the actual English expression is idle hands do the devil's work, or something like that.
Yes, yeah, it's something like that in English, yeah.
Yeah, dude. So, yeah, you've been obviously quite busy. I see you tagged me in another AI thing on Twitter.
Yeah, dude, you're the firstly resident computer scientist and then also AI specialist of the South African Twitter sphere. Of course, I'm going to tag you in AI related stuff.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting because like there were I essentially had two replies to that.
Maybe before you give the reply, give the context for people that don't know.
Oh yeah, Jamie, pull that shit up.
We don't have a Jamie here today.
Yeah, hold on. Let me pull up the actual tweet. So you tweeted a article from, and I haven't had time to really look at it because, as it turns out, when people tweet these sort of articles, what people don't get is that like these publications are peer reviewed and like they take a lot of time. Like it takes time to review all them. Like if I had to look at, like I can zoom over it now. I'm actually looking at it now, and it's actually a pretty short one. It's not mathematically heavy, but the basis of this argument is on statistical probability around what they call generative adversarial networks, or GANs.
Maybe read the title of the article so anyone that wants to go read the entire thing can just Google it and go check for themselves before you continue.
Okay, cool. So it's called Deepfakes: A Threat to Image Fabrication in Scientific, Scientific Publications. It's by I don't know any of these scholars at all. I've never seen any of their work, but because you get to a point where you start to recognize people's work. But basically, they use these things. So there's an increasing risk of people using advanced artificial intelligence, particularly the generative adversarial network, for scientific image manipulation for the purpose of publication. We demonstrate this possibility by using a GAN, G-A-N, to fabricate several different types of biomedical images and discuss possible ways for the detection and prevention of such scientific misconducts in communities. So that's the abstract, because abstracts are pretty important in scientific papers. So there's a couple of things right away that I would say from there. And this is what, without even going deeply into the thing, I've seen some of the statistical results in that. One thing that that gets underplayed in this is the fact is that the last sentences there is to fabricate several different types of biomedical images and discuss possible ways for the detection and prevention of such scientific misconduct. So yes, if you just read the title, it's like, oh no, nothing will ever work again because we can't trust images or videos. But yet in the article itself, they already say, hey, here are some ways we can detect and prevent these malformed images by generative adversarial networks. So I understand why they went with the title, because it gets people hooked in. But the actual content is fairly reasonable. It's like from what I've seen thus far, I've seen their statistical results. But yeah, the point I'm trying to get to here is that even within this article, they're already discussing different ways to detect and prevent it. And that's kind of the essence of what my response to you was, when I said that soldiers did not stop wearing armor because modern firearms could mince medieval knight armor. They started wearing a new form of armor. Quantum computing meant that we now started investing in quantum encryption. Similarly, I fully expect new ways to verify evidence. And that was like the crux of my answer.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and I think that's an apt metaphor to explain it simply. But at the same time, I can't. I just look at the sheer amount of evidence, or in a court case, or evidence in a scientific study that can be fabricated using this, and it's going to have to be a massive endeavor, mainlining or mainstreaming this type of armor, if you will, to use that, to keep on that metaphor, to make sure that this type of threat is mitigated properly.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like there's that, I have no illusions about. It's going to take time to get up to speed to like mass producing Kevlar plate carriers and plates, or to stick with the metaphor for this. But yeah, you're right. Like, I guess the takeaway I'd like people to say is, yes, things are going to change, but it's not the absolute end of video and image evidence. It just means it's going to be tough going for a while as things change.
Yeah. No, I'm already seeing in my mind's eye how court cases in the very near future are absolutely thrown into disarray by just deepfake videos, or videos that have been very expertly edited. I'm not talking about just cutting something out, like digitally manipulated. And we're already on that level where artificial intelligence can be used to manipulate audio in that same way. I mean, it's very trivial, but you've already got these apps where you can get, I don't know, some celebrity to say something, and it's just the AI generating their voice and their little speech patterns. And it's getting very uncanny. It's getting very close to the real thing. And I mean, we're gonna start getting examples, I think, of this type of manipulation actually threatening court cases in the very near future.
Yeah. So this kind of goes back to what I said earlier, or have been saying for a while, rather, is that, and it's difficult to say this without coming off as a bit uncaring, but it's like this kind of comes with the territory where, like, I've said this in the previous episodes in person with you on so many platforms, is that given our technological advancement, we have reached a phase in our technological advancement where pretty much everything is some form of existential threat. We can't go any further without, like, everything's an existential threat, literally.
Right.
Like, we've reached a point in our advancement of computer science where, you know, that people are saying AI is a threat. Although I will say, shout out to the Wuhan lab, because for once everybody's focused on biosciences and not so scared of AI. Because even in biosciences now, we've reached a point where we can engineer viruses and all sorts of things to the point where it's world-ending type contagions. You know, that's biosciences. Yeah. You've reached a point where, in fact, the only science that hasn't gotten really existentially crazy, or at least I haven't seen any evidence of it, is metallurgy. Like, our metallurgy is kind of lagging behind. But in terms of electrical engineering, computer science, chemical engineering, everything. You can name a science and I can name you something that's in that field that is an existential threat to us. So again, I say go. And you know me, I'm like my hero, Isaac Arthur. I'm a technological optimist. I tend to believe that technology will make our lives, as on the whole, better. Even I say we should move forward with like cautious optimism. Yeah.
Now, yes, I hear where you're coming from, but what would your reassurances be to someone that is genuinely not skeptical of technology, but not in a paranoid way, like in a genuine way, where they look at all these threats. For example, we've talked about this previously, I think. I don't know whether on the show or in private, about the fact that we don't know what the psychological effects are going to be on the next generation or on the generation of children that grew up with the internet from age 0. Especially those children that have just been left in front of their screens by their parents because their parents just want their children to be distracted, and they're watching all types of just unprecedented levels of pink sludge content. Now, pink sludge being in reference to what McDonald's makes their food out of. Now, when it comes to, well, that's just one example. Then there's the example of weaponry getting to a point where we can't risk even a regional war, because that regional war might include a nuclear power or two, where God forbid. And that's a definite existential threat. Then you also have the development of, as you mentioned, the development of all these different pathogens, and even just the studying of all these pathogens and manipulating their DNA. And then one of those pathogens or viruses escapes or by accident, and that is another existential threat. You've got biological interference, where we are heading into the realm of gene editing. We're heading into the realm of manipulating our own genes through various methods. And yeah, that's also an existential threat, because now suddenly, if you can start creating designer children, designer babies, you can say, well, I want my child to have an IQ level of this. I want them to be super muscular. I want them to have blue eyes, and I want them to be super fast. And just an example. Suddenly, the people that can't afford the people that can't afford that type of gene manipulation their children aren't going to be able to compete with these superhumans. Secondly, the countries that ban that type of gene manipulation are not going to be able to compete with the countries that don't. So it's just going to be it's going to inevitably result in a genetic arms race. And yeah, those are just a few examples. I mean, like you said, in every field of science, there's almost this type of existential threat. A lot of people might look at that and say, well, maybe we've gone too far. Maybe science isn't something that should be infinitely pursued. Maybe there is a line where we have to stop and say, well, to here and no further. To people that have a healthy sense of skepticism regarding the threats related to technology and the advancement of science, if you had to give them reassurance, maybe not in a frank way, but rather in a human way, try to empathize with them, what would you tell them?
Well, I mean, I'm actually one of those people, ironically. So as much as a technological optimist as I am, so I will start by saying, in terms of this far, the idea of should science be infinitely pursuable or not, I will say that one of my favorite new channels, actually, What If Altist, sort of well encapsulated the idea of how far science can go, and it can actually be infinitely pursuable by the right people. I like to think of science sort of like the American Constitution, where it was written that this Constitution is only good for good moral and religious people. So the question, I would say, in terms of is it infinitely pursuable, I would say is not a question of should it be. I think it should be. The question is, are we ready for it to be infinitely pursuable? Like, we need to, and I see surprisingly large amounts of people on the internet turning back to sort of things like family values and basic morality and all that. And if that trend continues, then I would say, yeah, we can keep pursuing more science, given that we have the right moral compass with that science. In terms of mitigating it, I would say I would urge you to try to remember that the things that get the headlines are the titles of how scary the technology is. You hear about this AI doing X, Y, and Z. You don't hear about people like myself working on things like artificial intelligence ethics and, stop switches and all that kind of stuff. You don't hear about the backdrop. So while I realize that it is scary, I urge you to remember there are a lot of people like myself who are working in the background on fail-safes and guidance, like I said, like building ethical artificial intelligence, as opposed to just the headlines surrounding people who have just made this thing that made this huge breakthrough. I can't comment on all the other scientists because, a virus can't be ethical because it's just a virus. But similarly, I would say for my compatriots, like there are people in the background who are actually working really hard on a lot of fail-safes and backups sort of thing.
Yeah, well, Odin, you're sounding a bit like your nemesis, Mr. Musk, in his approach to AI needing fail-safes and needing to be needing to have these types of dam walls that if one of the walls breaks, there's another one to keep the water from, or the flood from just sweeping people away.
I wouldn't be surprised if he read some article. Of course, remember he was out. First of all, he was outright
I've started the next tangent for the rest of the episode.
He was outright against AI until, you're into Neuralink now? Yeah, AI is fine as long as it's tempered. Oh, really? Thanks, Elon, you jackass. I've been saying that for like years, but you know what? Fine. Let's listen to Elon Musk. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna be. I just came back from church. I'm gonna be a good person and temper myself. Speaking of Elon Musk, I will say it was interesting following the Uvalde shooting. How he was called upon to comment on gun violence, and he came out in a way that I kind of pretty much expected he would, and I kind of quoted it and I said, guys, this is what I've been saying for a long time. He's not one of us. He's not the billionaire messiah. He's just slightly on the tangential line. He's controlled opposition at worst and slightly on the
best of the worst.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what he is. So all these people like acting like he's the messiah, like no, he's gonna let you down. And that tweet about gun, like he's that's who he's always been. That's who he's always been. And people are just so desperate because he's gonna buy Twitter, or apparently that deal's now on hold, and gonna bring Trump back or whatever. I'm like, is that all it takes to impress you? Like that's all there is to it? Like, yeah.
Well, I actually want to rather focus on something else that you mentioned earlier rather than Mr. Musk. You said you went to church today, and seeing as you are living in America now, I'm glad that you found that little note of stability living on a completely different continent. How have you? What's the process been like? What's the journey been like?
It's actually funny because I didn't find the church found me. I was at Market Wednesday, and it was Ash Wednesday, and the priest from that particular, so at my university there's a lot of churches. There's like the Lutherans, the Methodists, the Presbyterian, Calvinists, a lot. And I'm a member of the Anglican Church, and you actually have a street, and on that street is all like the sororities, which are just these palatial mansion houses, and all the churches and cafes, except for the Catholics, because the Catholics always have to be super special. They're on the other side of campus with their own little chapel, because the Catholics always have to be super special with their little pope hats and whatever. But but the rest of the churches are more or less on one street. And the guy found me, and I actually initially. So a lot of people seem to think when it comes to Christianity that it doesn't really matter where you go, and as long as it's a good church, and and to a large percentage that is true. However, there is a specific reason why I am an Anglican and not a Catholic. There are once you actually get into the weeds of Christianity and understand the doctrines and all that, there is a reason why somebody would choose Catholicism or Anglicanism or Presbyterianism or being a Methodist or a Baptist. And for me, Anglicanism is the answer that actually works for me. So when a priest from the Anglican Church actually, I was looking for Anglican churches in the area, and when a priest came from one of the churches that's just on that street full of churches, I was like, wait, what? There's one there? I was like, yeah, sure, I'll definitely come. And the rest was that was it, you know. Yeah, he just walked by chance. By chance, I was there actually at Market Wednesday for one of my other clubs, and yeah, he just ran into me, and he was giving out crosses and ashes for Ash Wednesday. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm very glad that you've been put on that journey. That's where you ended up. I think it's a very healthy place, and I think it's good to have that spiritual grounding and that religious grounding. And yeah, I think specifically in the US, it's a bit of a different smorgasbord of different churches that you can choose from than here in South Africa.
Yeah,
as I understand it.
Yeah, I think in South Africa it's pretty much just Catholicism and Anglican and Seventh-day Adventists. That's it.
Well, when it comes to these types of things, dude, I keep telling people maybe you should turn off the focus that you have on saving the world and on international politics and the current thing, and look at the smaller things around you. Like, for example, make sure that your house is neat and tidy. If you're feeling a bit down or you're feeling a bit out of it, go for a hike or for a walk, or work in your garden. Start a vegetable garden. Actually, I'm doing an episode on my channel this coming week on tips and tricks on how to start a vegetable garden. And do the simple things. And I mean, this is actually something that Jordan Peterson got very right. Some things he gets wrong, but this is one of the things that he got very, very right. And that is, it starts with the small basic things in your own personal sphere. And then you work out from there. Don't play on hard mode if you're losing on easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, for me, like you mentioned that as well, I've also started working out every damn morning, except for Sunday. That's God's day. I rest on Sundays, but I've worked out pretty much every morning, just like doing like a couple of weights. Yes, lift some weights, lift some heavies, and like 5Ks of cardio. Like be it a treadmill or bicycle or elliptical. I know we're gonna get a lot of comments from like the fitness community now, like oh this is the wrong kind of cardio, but yeah, whatever. It's working for me so far, so whatevs. That's what helps me a lot. And like I said, just like you said, little things like talking to your mates more often, and or even just I know it's kind of tangential, but just like now, like I messaged you the other day. I was like, the idea of having the local pub, people like kind of looked at, but the idea of having the local pub with your regulars, when you walk, like when I walk into certain establishments now, and everybody there knows who you are, so there's no need to like check you or check your ID or anything like that. There's no need to like take your card as security for payment or whatever. Like everybody knows who you are. Like, it's just, yeah.
Yeah, man, but that was back in the day. That was the ultimate establishment. That's how it worked. When you went to the local pub, you knew almost everyone there. If a stranger walked in, it was immediately noticeable. I mean, that's the trope that you see in Western movies, where the guy from out of town walks into the saloon and he sticks out like a sore thumb. Everyone notices it immediately. But that's the thing, is that's how it used to be everywhere. But with urbanization and with larger populations living together, it just faded as a thing. I mean, I remember growing up in Malmesbury, walking down the street. Every time if I were to go out on a Saturday, walk down the main street where all the shops are, I would definitely recognize quite a few people, dozens even, as I walk down the street. But now, as the town has grown, if I now go back and I walk down the streets, I don't really recognize anyone. And that's the thing. That's what happens with as populations increase and as places become more cosmopolitan and people move to places for almost as economic mercenaries. You don't stay in a place because you love it. You move to the place where you can get the most money. Now, I mean, that's not something that's inherently wrong. That's something that a lot of people have to do, something that enables a lot of people to have the lives that they do. But at the same time, when it comes, let's take an example like working remotely, this new frontier and this new opportunity that a lot of people have, that they can just work on their laptop from anywhere they want. And all those people are moving or emigrating or semi-migrating to beautiful places. They're moving disproportionately to small little hideaway towns in the countryside, old towns, or they're moving to these fishing villages on the coast, or they're moving to these remote little areas, these hideaway little cute little towns. But the thing is, they're moving to places that are beautiful because the people that live there have been living there for generations and have been plowing their money and their time and their effort into those little places. It's not, those places aren't beautiful just because of their setting. They're beautiful because of the type of people that live there. And I feel there's a little bit of a thing that bothers me, that these places are now just being flooded by economic mercenaries, people that want to go live there because they want to live in a beautiful environment and in a beautiful town to do their work, but they don't really understand why the place that they're moving to is beautiful. It's like that thing that Russell Lamberti says, in a time where you can live anywhere, a lot of people forget to live somewhere.
That is brilliantly put, actually. And I mean, the same thing's happening here in the US, that a lot of people, especially in the US, are moving post-COVID to honestly more red states, and red states tend to have a large amount of smaller towns, and they tend to have people that are there generationally. Case in point, the state capital of Florida is not Miami. It is not this cosmopolitan metropolis that is Miami. The state capital of Florida is where I am. It's in Tallahassee, and it is a beautiful town. It reminds you of Pretoria in many ways. It's depopulated in many ways. It's government buildings and the various universities, but it is absolutely beautiful. You will run into people who have been here for like 3-4 years. I ran into a dude who's a shoemaker. His Greek descent. His family got here before World War One. That is how long he's been here, and that's all he's ever done is make shoes and repair them. That's what he does. He lives.
But see, those are the types of people that create beautiful places.
And he makes great, he does great pride in his work. That's all he does. He's got his little shop, and he makes and repairs shoes. That's it. That's his life.
Yeah.
That's him.
Yeah. Yeah, man. But the thing is, it's difficult because I can completely understand people moving for opportunities. For example, I moved to Pretoria for opportunity. You moved to Florida for an opportunity that you got. I'm not still living in the town where I was born, but the thing is,
I'm coming back in December though.
Yeah, man, we're gonna make a plan. But the thing is, at some point, people are going to have to start by hunkering down and defending what's there. Now, I mean, me living here in Pretoria, I'm not just going to run away when things get tough here. I'm already in the trench digging industry here in Pretoria. So I think if you've moved somewhere, so I think if you've moved somewhere, you kind of have a responsibility to contribute to keeping that place beautiful. to contribute to keeping that place functional and to keep that community vibrant. So, for example, you moving to Tallahassee, you kind of have a responsibility to socialize with people, to go down to the family-owned pub, to sometimes buy products and groceries from the family-owned stores, not just the massive supermarkets.
Oh yeah, I mean, I go out of my way to like the local liquor store. Sorry, like where like I can go to Publix or Target. I intentionally go to smaller stores.
Yeah, well, then you're already doing what you're supposed to. I think you kind of have a responsibility to do that.
Yeah, or the dry cleaners. I can have my dry cleaning shipped out and done for my suits and all that, no problem. The reason I take time out of my day to go to Blue Star dry cleaning is because of the sweet little old lady and her family that runs that dry cleaning house. You know, that's why I'm doing it. I can order like hot dogs all day from Walmart. I intentionally go to Mom and Pop's. It's literally called Mom and Pop's hot dog stand. I forgot what their actual names are. Everybody on campus just calls them Mom and Pop, but their hot dog stand. It's like a little trailer tuck shop thing. Like it's
well, yeah. In the end, if people don't do that, then it's all just going to keep merging until there's only just an oligarchy of massive corporations left, and you can't really build a community around just a handful of megacorps. It's not possible. Then you're living in a dystopia.
Soulless. Same thing with the architecture. Like all the skylines look the same now. It's a symptom of that sameness. Like architecture, culture, everything looks the same.
Yeah. But I saw someone make an interesting point regarding architecture the other day. Someone tweeted out about like, it's the architects that are creating all this ugly architecture. But then someone reacted. I can't remember who, but they reacted and they made a good point. They said it's not just the architects designing ugly architecture; it's the people demanding ugly architecture. It's the city planners and the developers that are asking for the cheapest type of architecture. They don't want to spend a penny more to make a building beautiful. They want to make it practical and they want to make it as cheap and as fast as possible to build. So you can't just lay it all at the feet of the architects. The architects designing brutalist, ugly buildings are being contracted by people that want the cheapest building. Not even aesthetic is not even something that is in any way considered. So it's kind of those people that you have to hold accountable as well.
I mean, in that token, I would say shout out to the Florida State University. Yeah, fuck you, Ohio. The Florida State University, because not only if you actually Google it, it's a beautiful university. That's one of its things. It's incredibly beautiful. If you look at the architecture of it, like the churches, like I said, that I went to, and what they've done is A, maintain the old buildings, B, modernize those buildings internally, and C, obviously at great cost, when they've added like a new student center, the building looks the same as the rest of the original architecture. Like it has that same brick face, arches theme. I'm like, holy crap, that's amazing. It must have cost them an incredible amount of money, but they sunk that money in to not break that theme of the beauty of what the university was. Yeah.
No, because one of my friends actually made the point the other day that just as important as the inside of your house is, you have to remember the outside of your house or your building is the inside of the city. So that is where the space inside the town or inside the city where people walk and where they play and where they socialize. So the outside of your building, whether that be your house or your business or whatever, is the inside of the city.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah.
So you can't just neglect the outside facade of your building or wherever for the sake of just thinking, well, at least if I live it, if it's beautiful on the inside, then it matters. Well, you have to look at it at the bigger picture, where it's actually it's also important to have a beautiful outside of the building, because that's the side of the building that impacts the other people around you, the people that don't have access to the inside of your building, maybe, or the inside of your house.
Yeah. I mean, I hope one day you'll actually visit me here, because this is a beautiful town.
Yeah.
I do have one more point that I've really been meaning to discuss with you for a while now, real quick. So I went out with the boys on Friday night.
You already have a friend group that you refer to as the boys in Florida.
Yeah.
That's how you know you've settled somewhere, when you've got your friend group starts being referred to as the boys.
It's true though. It's like, it's like Ty calls you like, yo, get in my pickup truck. We're gonna drink beer and eat alligator tail. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm down for that. Alligator tail is delicious, by the way. It's actually really good.
I actually ate crocodile ribs in Zambia when we were on holiday in April. So I'm guessing it's similar.
Yeah.
Fishy chicken.
Pretty much, yeah. It's delicious though. Yes. Yeah. So when the boys call you up on a Friday night, it's like, get in the pickup truck. We're gonna eat gator and drink beer. So I went out with the boys on Friday night, and the money's been a little tight because you get paid less during the summer. So I wasn't planning on having an enormous bender, but it ended up being an enormous bender anyway, because there are two things that have a great gravitational pull in the universe. The first is a black hole, and the second is trying to leave the boys early on a night out on a bender. I ended up spending $60, which is an enormous amount of money. It is, and it doesn't sound a lot to people, and it's not as much anymore thanks to inflation. But $60 is, I pay $50 for utilities every month, to put that in perspective. $60 is easily like a week and a half's, maybe 2 weeks worth of groceries. $60 is a lot. I'm actually having a quick cheeky cider now, but it got me thinking about like, what is a real bender? And have you ever heard of the Founding Fathers drinking bill?
No.
I'll pull it up right now. How much do you think the Founding Fathers drank?
I'm assuming they were quite the connoisseurs, or quite the appreciators.
Because what people don't know about the founding, people in that time in general actually drank a lot. People in in those times, because clean, healthy drinking water was kind of hard to come by. So people from sort of Middle Ages up until Revolution, American Revolution time, they actually drank quite a lot, pretty easily. And so, I living across from a sports bar has been the worst thing that has ever happened to me in my health and my financial health. But how much do you think because it got me thinking, like, I really went on a bit. How much do you think the Founding Fathers drank the night before they signed the constitutional, like they went to the Constitutional Convention and partied at a tavern?
In total or per person?
Let's say, because there were 55 delegates. How many bottles do you think they got through?
Bottles of what?
Of anything, like any combination of drinks. Like, obviously they were partying pretty hard.
Probably a bottle each, wine. Okay.
So according to the bill preserved from the evening, the 55 delegates, they drank 54 bottles of Madeira, 60 bottles of claret, 8 bottles of whiskey, 22 of porter, 8 of hard cider, 12 of beer, and 7 bowls of alcoholic punch. That is an inordinate. I even on you and I's greatest bender, I supremely doubt I could have put in a performance like that. That is inhuman.
Well, the other thing that's inhuman is their recovery ability, not just to be able to go on that type of bender, but to be all right the next day.
Yeah. I mean, the point that I guess I'm trying to get to is that the idea that the Founding Fathers were these very stern, tight-lipped, sober. No, they were actually people like you and me, like very much just people who had a very specific idea in mind of liberty. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's I think it's Sticks that always makes that point when people say, well, how do you think the founding fathers would react if they see the type of weaponry or guns that Americans have access to today? And he said, well, they probably would order 10 each immediately.
Yeah, I was going to say, from a military standpoint, I think Benjamin Franklin, Washington, they'd all be like, how do we arm as many of our men as possible with these?
And how many am I allowed to have for myself?
Yeah. And I guess that comes, my last point is obviously because there was a shooting recently, there is a resurgence of the idea around gun control. South Africa has a homicide rate of around 700% that of the United States, which is impressive considering the size of both countries, both in terms of land mass and population. The United States is far bigger. Now, I will say this, every single child or person killed in a mass shooting is a tragedy. That is one too many. When you adjust it, at the same time, when you adjust it per capita, the United States is comparable to countries like Germany and some countries in Scandinavia. So you need to ask yourself, is there really more? And yeah, there are more mass shootings, and yeah, they are reported more often now because they need to sensationalize it in the media. I will say this. In the 50s and 60s, kids used to bring guns to school to practice shooting and hunting. And there were a lot less mass shootings then. And so I have to ask, is there possibly another variable that is causing the rise in school shootings? And why is that variable not being discussed? That's my thing. And obviously, I fully condemn there's that meme of hard times create strong men create good times create weak men. Good times have created weak men when you have a tactical squad of police officers who sit around for 40 minutes and let children be butchered. That is good times creating weak men.
Yeah, well, maybe on that note, my final thoughts would be firstly, a couple of thoughts. That whole thing of hard times create strong men create good times. That whole sequence. I've been thinking about it for a while, and I think something that stood out to me is the fact that, well, we've exited the good times, or we're currently exiting the good times from what I can see. And the big benefit of living in good times is that you have ample opportunity to live a comfortable life. And as I'm looking around me at inflation, global instability, skyrocketing debt from every country, threat of war, threat of all these types of bioweapons and everything, threat of science and technology, as we discussed, we are definitely heading into hard times. I wouldn't say we're there yet, seeing as I think it pales in what we're currently experiencing, pales in comparison to how bad it can get and how bad it has gotten in the past. But to add to that what I said earlier, the big benefit, I think, of living in hard times is that you have ample opportunity to live a significant or great life, a unique life. And that's something that needs to be kept in mind. But at the same time, I think more people need to start focusing rather on making sure their life raft and their community's life rafts, plural, are in tip-top shape. Make sure firstly that your family is secure. Make sure that you have backup plans for any type of realistic emergency situation. Not saying you should become like a paranoid prepper, but make sure you are ready for realistic threats and emergency situations. And then also make sure your mental health is good. I think that's also very important. And you get that right by doing exercise, socializing frequently, getting outside, not just sitting inside the whole day, eating healthy, getting out in nature, all these things. And that's the thing. I think that's another life raft that you can build for yourself, is that mental life raft of making sure that you're mentally solid. You can't be struggling with little tiny trivial anxieties if the shit hits the fan, dude. You better make sure that you're mentally in a good place. I think that's something that people can focus on in the meantime, or in the immediate future. And then lastly, as I've said, I think previously, I don't know on this show or on another, the big mistake that the people on the Titanic made was, up until the bitter end, they were still operating on the assumption that the ship wasn't going to sink. If they had just accepted the fact that the ship is likely going to sink hours before it actually happened, when the signs were there, they could have fashioned life rafts out of furniture. They could have calmly boarded the life rafts. They could have actually done quite a lot and saved a lot of lives. And a lot of people died in that tragedy because the people at the helm were operating on the assumption until the bitter end that the ship can't sink. It's impossible. Everything is fine. And then in the last minutes of that tragedy was when that's when the alarm was really sounded, and everyone had to rush to the life rafts, and it was just chaos. But that's the thing, is that maybe you should, rather than, don't be blackballed, don't just say, well, everything is lost. Rather say, we're heading into choppy waters, we're heading into difficult times, and I better be ready on as many fronts as I can. I will not be ready for any situation, but I damn well will make sure I'm ready for a lot of situations.
Yeah. Wow. I couldn't have closed that better myself. Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, Odin, thank you very much for inviting me on again. We'll definitely have to make this a more regular thing, seeing as I think the audience of this show, fickle as they may be, do deserve content now and again.
Yeah. I mean, I've written 2 whole scripts for pixel prattlings. Like, it just takes time to get like the background gaming footage and all that. It's just it takes time.
All right. Well, thank you very much, my friend. I really enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next episode where we do another collab.
Cool. I'll see you later. Cheers.
All right. Cheers, man. Walk well.